Welcome back, everybody. Today we're moving on to the next chapter in our Builder's Guide to Accounting series. It's going to be chapter 12. Chapter 12 is a pretty important chapter, I have to say, one of the more important ones in this book. On the exam, when you see the term overhead expenses, you should immediately know that you need to go to this book, not the Florida Contractor's Manual. On my exam, I had multiple questions that were dealing with overhead expenses. So this is one of the more important chapters that you should focus on. So definitely make sure that you read this chapter a couple times, review all the information, and let's get right into it. So we are on page 140 and overhead expenses. Previous chapters examined direct costs, which vary with sales, but overhead expenses tend to remain fairly constant in spite of changes to your sales volume. Pretty much the definition. I think it's important to know what an overhead expense is. You may actually get a question just like that, where they ask, what is an overhead expense? So there's your answer right there. There's a difference between labor, a direct cost, and union welfare expense, a variable expense. So here they're talking about variable and fixed overhead. All right, so figure 12.1 on page 142, I think is very, very important, because here they're listing what is what, okay? There's two columns. Everything here is variable expenses. Everything here is fixed expenses. I'm not gonna go over, but I'm not gonna go over everything here, but you should have an idea on what's in each column. I think it's pretty important. I had multiple questions on the exam where they were asking me what are either variable expense or fixed expense, and they will just literally give you, a bunch of these, or they'll mix them up and they'll ask you to find the correct one. I think those are super easy questions because they really don't require you to know how to do anything except find the information on a page like this, on page 142. So definitely know where variable and fixed expenses are located in this book, and you may get some very easy answers out of it. Here they're going over all the variable expenses: payroll taxes, taxes other, automotive repairs maintenance, automotive gas oil, operating supplies, small tools, equipment rental, union welfare insurance, collection expenses, bad debts, travel, entertainment. You see what I did in this book is that I actually took two different highlighters and I made two different colors. So I'm able to differentiate what's a variable and what's a fixed expense. Okay, very, very easy. Like I said, if and when you do get those questions on the exam where they ask you what is what, you're able to locate the answer quite quickly because they're different colors. That's how I did it. You can choose to do it. You don't have to do it, but this is an easy way to differentiate the two kinds of expenses, at least for me. See, here we have in different colored, we have fixed overhead expenses, salary, wages, payroll taxes, taxes other, office supplies, postage, printing, insurance, cell phone, utilities, dues, subscriptions, accounting and legal, consultant fees, rent, appreciation, amortization, advertising, promotion, security, interest, building maintenance, miscellaneous. Super, super simple, super easy. There's really nothing to it. Just be able to find the right information that they are looking for on the exam. Next, budgeting expenses. We're in 144. The budgeting process is three parts: preparing the budget, analyzing the results, taking action to control expenses. Pretty self-explanatory if you ask me, but I think it's an important concept. So definitely at least read these sections because I think they're going to be beneficial to you. Next, on page 145, we're talking about preparing your budget. Another approach for variables would be to set up budgeted amounts for expenses based on assumptions about the level of sales or labor. All right. So general ledger accounts, and we're on page 147. As you see, I did the same exact thing here. Two different colors to differentiate the two kinds of expenses. You've got variable expenses, fixed expenses, okay? So know what these are, know the differences between them. Moving on, there's charts here. Some of this may look familiar. I don't really think that most of this stuff is important. You're probably not going to be asked a question on that, but still, it should be a good idea to at least, go over it once. Now we're on page 150. The cost of organizing a business can be high. The cost should not be charged against the first year of operation. Instead, you should set up in an asset account organizational expenses and write off the cost over a period of years. The process of spreading costs over a period of years is called amortization. It's handled like depreciation. You charge an amount to an expense category each month and reduce the asset by the same amount. Basically, those are some definitions. I think those are very good definitions to know. Very likely that they may ask you something like that on the exam. And that's pretty much it. Like I said, it's not a very deep chapter. There's really one major concept here, and that's variable expense versus fixed expense. What is what? So definitely be very familiar with these kinds of expenses and the differences between them, and you should be good to go. On page, what is it? Page 152, you've got those test questions. Go over them. If you can answer these questions without any difficulty, you probably don't have any, you shouldn't have any problems with the content of this chapter. That is it. If you've got any questions or comments, definitely hit me up. Let me know what you think. If you want to see anything else. Other than that, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.